Welcome back, anatomy students. Today we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. Yesterday we were talking about functions that all complex organisms need to do or perform in order to survive. And today we're going to talk about what outside sources the organisms need in order to perform these functions. What does a body need to accomplish the 8 functions that we talked about yesterday, like metabolism, digestion, movement? You need 5 specific items: nutrients, water, oxygen, body temperature, and atmospheric pressure. So we're going to talk about these each on individual slides. You should be able to list the 5 when we're done. So the first need we have is nutrients, and that one is probably the most obvious because you like to eat. And why do we eat? Mostly so that we can have energy, right? Also, we eat so that we can have materials to build larger tissues. So the chemicals that we need come from some macromolecules: carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Lipids are used in our cell membranes. Proteins, those are used to build tissue structures like collagen. And then carbohydrates, they're used for lots of different things. For the most part, we're using it for energy. And then also our body uses carbohydrates on the cell membranes for communications. So that's another thing. And then vitamins and minerals, not needed in as large a quantity as the other 3, but vitamins and minerals help all of the chemical reactions occur efficiently. So those are needed as well. Oxygen is the next obvious thing that we need. You could probably have guessed those first 2 without me telling you. 21% of the air that you breathe is oxygen. The majority is nitrogen, 78%. But what do we need oxygen for? You're like, we need it to breathe. But why do we need it to breathe? Like, we don't need oxygen to breathe. Breathing brings in oxygen so that it meets our body's need of energy. So let's go back to cellular respiration from biology. We needed oxygen in order to break down glucose and release up to 36 ATP molecules, right? And remember, our body uses ATP for energy. So our body needs oxygen so that we can get the energy out of the food that we eat. Water is the next item. 60 to 80% of your body weight is composed of water. It's in all of your cells. That's what the cytoplasm is. It's in your bloodstream. So the majority of your blood is plasma, and the majority of the plasma is water. So why do we need this? One, because it contains other items, right? It's a medium for transport. It's a medium for chemical reactions to take place. So molecules in solution dissolve or dissociate, and they're more likely to be able to recombine to form other items. So how do we get the water? We drink it, but then also many of the foods that we have water as well, and we have to constantly replace that because we're losing it through excretion, body secretion, and evaporation. So evaporation kind of brings us to body temperature, right? So you know your body temperature is somewhere around 98 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm a low, I'm usually 98.2. Other people are right around 98.6. So 37 degrees is the typical, like the standard temperature of most people. And why do we need our bodies to be at 37 degrees Celsius? Because the enzymes, and all our chemical reactions require enzymes, right? The enzymes that we have inside our bodies work best at 37 degrees Celsius. So this graph over here, you can see as temperatures increase, molecules are moving more quickly, right? And if they're moving more quickly, they're more likely to bump into each other and recombine. So they're able to bump into enzymes and cause more chemical reactions. Above 37 degrees, our enzymes are proteins, and proteins denature at high temperatures. So it breaks the bonds, and to say denature means it changes the shape. And if you remember, enzymes have a specific shape that fits a specific substrate. So those 2 things have to have the same shape to work. So if you're above 37 degrees, the shape falls apart, and the enzyme can no longer function. Since the enzymes are used for all chemical reactions, another way of talking about temperature and enzymes is to say that as the body temperature increases, your metabolism or your metabolic rate increases. So chemical reactions are occurring more quickly. And vice versa, if the body temperature slows down, so this is the problem with like hypothermia, right? If it slows down, molecules are not moving as quickly, they're not colliding, they're not causing chemical reactions, so metabolic rate will slow down. So without atmospheric pressure, we wouldn't be able to survive, and we kind of know that. That's why the astronauts have to use spacesuits, right? So why do we need that atmospheric pressure? So everything moves from a high to a low concentration, a high to low temperature, and a high to low pressure. So molecules outside of our body come in, oxygen, for example, because the atmospheric pressure outside of our body is greater than the pressure inside of our body. When our pressure inside of our body, like the more molecules we have, we're going to increase pressure, right? So as you increase pressure, our pressure gets above atmospheric pressure and air goes out. So it's really the driving force for molecule movement. So if you increase pressure, it's kind of like compressing, right? You're putting molecules closer together, like in region 1 of this graphic. Closer together molecules going to they're going to bombard into each other more quickly and more often, and that causes them to spread out. So if you increase pressure, you will also increase diffusion rate. Decreasing pressure, same thing. So now let's make this kind of relevant to different situations. When you go up in a mountain, you're increasing altitude. Molecules get further apart, like over here in region 2. So as altitude increases, the pressure, molecules are not very close together, there's not a lot of pressure there, the pressure will decrease. So how is this relevant? Let's say you're climbing a mountain. What is this going to do to your respiration rate? So if the pressure is decreased, and we identified pressure decrease causes a decrease in diffusion rate, that means we're not going to get oxygen across our blood cells as quickly to meet our body needs. So what are we going to do? We're going to breathe more quickly so that we get more oxygen in, since not as much oxygen is moving with each breath. And then decreasing altitude, so if you're a scuba diver, if you're decreasing altitude, every 33 feet is another atmosphere of pressure. So you're increasing the pressure on your gases. So here's your gas tank, right? This is at the surface. Molecules are really far apart. And as you go deeper and deeper into the water, those molecules get closer and closer together, which means with each breath, you're shoving in a lot more molecules. And so it's going to have an increased diffusion rate. So that's why divers have to go up slowly so they don't get the bends, because as you go up in the water, the molecules are going to start to spread apart, and that's going to happen inside of their vessels and inside of their joints. So those are the 5 needs in order to meet our body's 8 functions. So quiz yourself. Can you list the 5? Can you describe them? Can you give an example of each? So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for listening.